Hi everyone, I'm Carla Ricola. I'm the Managing Director for the Outside Project. If you haven't heard of us, we are an LGBTIQ plus centre that's based in London. We also run a crisis shelter and we opened a domestic abuse refuge during COVID. We have an outreach service in Westminster as well. This is to reach our community who are more likely to rough sleep out in Soho or around the area because they feel safer amongst our community. The housing that we have established in London over the past few years, we have 18 beds. The LGBTIQ plus population of London is around 500,000. So as you can see, it's nowhere near covering the population as a provision, but we're trying our best, particularly when it comes to crisis situations like COVID, like emergency weather. We try as much as we can to open the spaces that we do have and welcome as many people as we possibly can. But as I say, we work with a marginalised group that are often not linked in with mainstream homelessness services or domestic abuse services. They're often not connected or seen by outreach teams or day centres. So they'll come to us at these like quite serious crisis points, or they'll reach out to friends or social groups and be redirected to us. So we don't have often much kind of pre-warning of how many people are going to come to us on these like emergency situations. So we just have to be quite ready and have as much resource as we can in place. And obviously the people that come to us at this point, they're at a higher risk of exploitation or harassment or violence in the street, particularly when rough sleeping, just because our community generally are, especially those who have intersecting identities. So people who are part of the global majority, people who are trans, people who are seeking asylum or just destitute. So if you work with a more marginalised group, the advice that we would give if you're planning on opening up a warm space and welcoming people is to get to know the behavior of people that you work with or the people that you are trying to welcome into your space when they are in crisis. So you can see the flyer that we put out across our socials. It just lists the behavior that we know from having lived experience ourselves, talking to people with lived experience, what they're going to do when they're in a crisis. They're going to ride buses, they're going to try and bar hop, sofa surf, use dating apps, use chill outs or saunas to try and survive during these emergency times. So we're just really putting that out there and letting them know that we know that this is how they are trying to survive and that they're welcome to use our space at this time. I think most people, the reason that we do that, most people will not consider themselves to be homeless enough or the right type of people to access our services or to access these kind of crisis emergency spaces, mostly because of ad campaigns and just how we're socialized as people to not or to only consider people who are like visibly sleeping rough or have drug or alcohol addiction issues. I think a lot of the ad campaigns for kind of bigger homelessness charities and just the general kind of perceptions that we have, the way things are seen in films, people with more marginalized identities don't see themselves as being necessarily homeless or in crisis or deserving of these services, or feeling maybe that they would be safe there as well. So we do a lot of work trying to call out to people through social media. We try and share photos of the different activities that we offer. We make it clear to people that there are no forms, no questions asked. If they just want to come in, access a warm space, have Wi-Fi, have a decent cup of coffee. We recognize that people from more marginalized backgrounds need to build up trust with services and with spaces. They've often had quite bad experiences trying to access mainstream services. So we build up that trust. We try and engage people in different types of activities, whether it's football teams or going to theatre trips. So we just, before we try and resolve their homelessness, if they don't want to talk about it. So we're not trying to kind of enforce people to engage with us straight away. but just make sure that they have the basics, the essentials that they need. So they've got emergency out of hours numbers. They know where their local A&E department is if they become seriously unwell. We try and give them the things that they need to stay in contact with us: phone chargers, power banks, essentials, thermal socks, foil blankets. So having all of these supplies ready to just give is really important. Um, and we also try and keep a bit of emergency funding aside for backpackers, for those who are really sometimes quite unwell, or we're just really worried about them. I think last year we managed to get some cash back from the GLA for the amount of money that we spent on backpackers, which was really great. But yeah, trying to find some extra funding for these emergency nights that you might face. We also sign up for SWEP alerts from the Rough Sleeping Commission, but we'll often know a few days ahead if the weather's going to turn, and we'll try and do a practice run of a warm space as well. So we'll kind of call it a few days early just to make sure that the team are ready and that we've got everything in place. We have all the supplies that we need. But yeah, so we've been running warm spaces for a few years in emergency weather. And if you want to come and visit our centre or ask me more questions about it, feel free.